so welcome back to the man cave. We are going to change the oil on this Lexus car. Now there's a couple of things that I want to make sure that we do. With Toyota vehicles, some of these older vehicles, they kind of leave an area right in here where they have the ability to kind of trap some dirt. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to blow this out so that we don't get any dirt down in there when we pull that cap off. Now, a lot of times, this oil cap will tell you what type of oil to use. This particular one does not. So we're going to look up the type of oil and the amount of oil that we need. So we're going to enter this in. This is an 05. And it is a Lexus truck RX330 all-wheel drive with a 3.3. We're going to run over here to specifications. We're going to go into fluid type specifications, and we're going to click on engine oil. It is going to tell us that we're going to use 5W30. So I've got the 5 quarts of Valvoline 5W30, and I've got the oil filter that fits this car. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to lift this car up so that we can see underneath of it well. Make sure we set it down on the locks so that we're safe. We're going to bring our oil drain up underneath of here. Now we've removed some panels off of this vehicle. Previously, to make it a little bit easier, we figured we didn't need to remove the panels while we were doing this. Now this is the oil plug right here. It is on the bottom part of the oil pan. We're just going to take a wrench and remove that oil plug. Now you need to be careful because this oil, when it comes out, it's going to come out kind of at an angle. It's not going to drop straight down. So while this oil is draining, we're going to take a look at the oil plug. One of the things that we need to do with this oil plug is we need to inspect it and the gasket that goes with it. Now, that gasket doesn't want to come off of there very bad. Pull this gasket off, maybe. It is pretty stuck. All right. There it finally started to move. Oh, there it is. Now this gasket is designed to protect the threads inside of the oil pan. Now right here at the very bottom of this plug is not cut completely square. It's actually rounded just a little bit. The reason it's rounded just a little bit is because it adds a lot of strength to this bolt, to the head of the bolt especially. So if you look, this is the gasket that came off of this car. And if you look, it's been smashed pretty flat. Now it's starting to round out here on this edge, which is a very good indicator that this needs to be replaced. So what we need to do is make sure that we have a gasket that protects the oil pan from the end of this bolt. If the end of this bolt starts getting into the oil pan, it's going to start to remove the threads. And if the threads get removed, that means you need to either rethread the oil pan or you need to replace the oil pan. So we make sure that we have a good gasket. I put a new gasket on this one because I knew that this oil plug needed to have a new gasket put on it. Now you don't have to wait until the oil completely stops. You just want to get most of it drained out. If the oil's warm, it drains much better than if it's cold. This oil is not particularly warm on this car. So we're going to put this back in. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look up the torque specifications for this oil plug. I'm just going to tighten this one up or snug this one up for right now. And I will come back later on and torque this plug. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull the filter off. On this car, the filter is right up in here. And this is actually designed so that when you pull the filter off, the oil from the filter will run down and come out of this little hole right here and drain down into my oil drain. Now you can see the oil coming out of it and draining right down just like it's supposed to do. We are going to completely remove this oil filter. And then we're going to bring the filter down here and we're going to inspect some things on it. Now one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is check this housing that the oil filter goes to. Now they have a tendency on these oil filters for the gasket to come off and stick to this housing, and you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you look here at this old filter, you can see oh my, this one is stuck in here good. But this gasket comes out. Now if this gasket comes out and sticks to that housing up in there, and you put a new filter on there, the minute that this car builds oil pressure, it is going to blow that second gasket out of there, and you are going to wind up with oil all over your shop, or your driveway, or wherever you're changing the oil. So with the new oil filter, we want to make sure that the new oil filter and the old oil filter match. This one we can tell the numbers are the same, so we know we've got the right one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put just a little bit of oil on this gasket. That way it allows the gasket to move freely. Then we are going to put this filter back on the car, and we'll spin this filter until the gasket just makes contact. You can tell when it makes contact because it won't move up and down easily any longer. Once it's made contact, we're going to turn it 3/4 of a turn. Now the next thing that you want to do is make sure that you wipe everything down so that you're not the guy or gal that is leaving oil all over the place. We're going to move this out of the way and let this car down. Raise it up off the locks, release the locks, and let the car down. Now, we are going to Now with this car, you have to be pretty careful because you can pour the oil in here faster than it will handle it. And so you have to kind of watch so that you don't wind up with oil all over the place. You can see that the oil is coming up to the top of that funnel, and if you pull it up too far, it'll actually start to come out down there at the valve cover. Okay, now we've got the oil in it. We're going to go ahead, put the cap back on, and we're going to go and start this car. Now, so on your dash there's going to be either an oil pressure gauge or an oil light. That oil light in this car is right here. Now when I start the car, that oil light's going to stay on for just a second and then it's going to go off. You need to make sure that that light goes off, because that means that we've built oil pressure. Now that we've built oil pressure, we're going to let this oil trickle down just a little bit. And we're going to check the engine oil level. Alright? So this yellow one right here is the dipstick for the engine. We have two marks. We have a dot down here. We have a dot up here. Some of these dipsticks will have hash marks in between here and here. The distance between this and this is going to be 1 quart. And you can see here that the oil is just below that line. I suspect if we let it set for just a minute, it will be right at the line. We'll check it again. It's getting really close. All right, so now when you check or change the oil on your car, it's a good time to be able to check everything else. We want to check our drive belts. Okay, the drive belt is going to keep all of our systems operating. We want to make sure that we check all of the hoses to make sure that we don't have any cracks or tears in hoses. We want to check the power steering fluid level. We want to check our washer fluid level. We want to check our coolant level. We need to check our brake fluid level. We need to pull the cover off and check our air filter. That's going to be covered in another video. We need to check our battery connections. I am also going to do a video where I'm going to clean our battery terminals, and I'm going to show you some tricks to do so that you can keep your memory in your systems. Now, once we've started the car, again I'm going to lift this up to make this a little easier. Now we want to inspect the oil filter to make sure that we don't have any leaks. And we're just going to look up in here and make sure that we don't have oil running from there. We're also going to inspect the oil plug to make sure that we don't have any leaks. Now the last thing that we want to do as we're doing this oil change is we're going to need to set or reset our maintenance required indicator. Now you can look that up. It'll probably also be in your owner's manual. We're going to look it up here on all data. We're going to go back to the vehicle level. We're going to go into maintenance. And we are going to go into service reminder. And it is going to tell us how to reset the maintenance required indicator. Well, this car does not have navigation, and so it tells us what we need to do. We're going to hold this button right here down while we turn the key on, and it's going to flash up here in the dash until it gets to 0. Now we've reset this maintenance indicator lamp, and that way our maintenance required light will go on in 5,000 miles, which is the manufacturer's recommended oil change interval. So we're going to come back and we're going to do a couple more videos about this car later on, but hope you enjoyed this one.